Welcome to episode 113, John Jacob Astor, 13 Lessons. This is an outline of episode 113. Lesson number 1, how he found the biggest growth industry in the world. That industry was, of course, fur trade.
A fellow traveler had told Astor that a man could get rich in the fur trade business. So that was the business he decided to pursue.
Lesson number 2, worked hard on fur trade for more than 50 years. Astor started fur trade when he was 20. At age 71, in 1834, he sold his entire fur business to plunge into the real estate business in New York City.
Began seriously investing in Manhattan real estate. Buying land would prove so profitable that in 1834, 71-year-old Astor decided to sell his fur company and put everything into real estate.
Lesson number 3, build up an international network for trade.
He had 3 older brothers, the first of which, George, left home and set up a musical instruments business in London. The second brother, Henry, left home for New York City to become a butcher. The third, John Melchior, became the steward of a German estate.
I see here a certain parallel between the Astor family and the Rothschild family. Mayer Amschel Rothschild, his 5 sons who established themselves in London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples, created the Rothschild banking empire. Lesson number 4, marry the right woman. Astor courted the daughter of his widowed landlady. He married her in 1885 and got $300 dowry, which he used to establish his fur company. Lesson number 5, join the secretive Masons to expand his social connection and his social standing.
Not long after John Jacob Astor arrived and settled in America, he became a Freemason of the prominent Holland Lodge No. 8 in New York City. He was a very active Freemason and held many key positions in secret lodge life. In 1788, he became the Master of Lodge No. 8.
Lesson number 6, he was the first to see global trade and global opportunities.
Astor's business flourished, and by 1800, the Astor Fur Company was one of the most profitable in the country. But for a man as ambitious as Astor, this was just the beginning. His grand plan was to set up a network of trading posts around the world.
Just what did he do? And we'll retrace John Jacob Astor's career, where he begins here in New York and then moves up into Canada, eventually over to Europe, over into the Great Lakes, around to the west coast of North America, and eventually around the entire world. John Jacob Astor was really the first to see this world as a global marketplace.
Lesson number 7, take the biggest risk. The Columbia River was discovered in 1892. 3 countries vied for control.
In New York, a wealthy and forward-thinking businessman by the name of John Jacob Astor realizes his opportunity to dominate the fur trade of the Pacific Northwest. Astor knows the value of controlling the mouth of a huge river. In 1810, he sends an expedition by land and sea to establish an American trading post at the mouth of the Columbia. Astor is not without competition. The fashion of the early 1800s has created an enormous worldwide demand for the sleek and abundant beaver pelts of the Pacific Northwest. The Russians are in Alaska, expanding south. The Spanish are in California, pushing north, and the British are racing westward across Canada. The British fur trading companies, already well established in Canada, are perhaps the greatest threat. With the northern boundary of the U.S. still vague, ownership of the Pacific Northwest is up for grabs. In the spring of 1811, with war between the U.S. and Great Britain imminent, Astor's party erects a small trading post at the mouth of the Columbia. They name it Astoria.
Lesson number 8, he was the first to see New York City as a commercial center of the United States and not just a prosperous village.
When other people thought of New York, for example, as a prosperous village, he was thinking of New York as a major city, as the center of commerce in America, if not the Western world.
Lesson number 9, you must have very high profit. Let's see just how lucrative was the trade with the Far East.
It was an enormously lucrative trade. A person could send a boatload of skins to China and pay for the ship, pay for the cargo, and have enough money nearly to retire on, just on one voyage.
Lesson number 10, he was the first to allow women to run a very large business. That woman was his wife, Sarah Cox Todd.
About a year after his arrival in New York and working with his brother, Astor married a young American girl of Dutch lineage named Sarah Todd. The union held more value than simply that of love. Sarah also brought with her a natural capability to discern between good and bad furs. Their shop sold musical instruments that Astor crafted, and they would use the profit to purchase furs. They lived simply and by frugal means. It is said that when John Jacob would go out on the frontier to collect furs, he would leave the tending of the business to Sarah, which was a revolutionary idea for the time, as women were not seen as capable of controlling land and business.
Lesson number 11, he was the first person to do vertical integration in the fur business.
Under Astor, the American Fur Company resembled a modern corporation with specialists, division of labor, and vertical integration. He ran the company from his headquarters in New York. Mackinac Island, in the Michigan Territory, was the center of the actual trading, where most furs were bought, packed on boats, and sent over to the East Coast. Astor's agents dotted the rivers throughout the Northwest, and they had log cabins well stocked with goods. They supplied the company's fur traders, who would live with different Indian tribes and supply them with goods and credit as needed. In conducting business this way, Astor differed from McKinney and the government factories. McKinney and his predecessors just built trading posts, stocked them with goods, and expected the Indians to come there to trade. Many Indians, however, lived hundreds of miles from a factory and had no supplies to trap with. Even if McKinney had given credit easily and had known whom to trust, the Indians would have been hampered by distances. Under Astor's system, the fur traders lived with the Indians, learned whom to trust, and bought and sold on the spot.
Lesson number 12, John Jacob Astor helped the American empire to expand west.
These men, called mountain men, traveled the unknown western frontier as they hunted. They discovered new territories and mountain passes. Because of John Astor's fur trading business, much of the West was explored. He was one of the men who helped contribute to the settling of the American western frontier.
Lesson number 13, John Jacob Astor is rightfully called the Godfather of American Capitalism. There are two reasons. First, he would do anything to make money. Death to millions of animals, no problem. Profiteering from U.S. government war bond, no problem. Selling opium to China, no problem. Giving peanuts to charity, no problem. Second, he is Godfather because he has no conscience.
John Jacob Astor, Godfather of American Business.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your comments and questions below. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.